Joshua has requested me on Patreon to review the movie Kodachrome, and I have to admit this is not a movie that has ever been on my radar despite the cast involved, so I pretty much watched it knowing as little as possible. Your first instinct might be that it's related to the Paul Simon song. However, while Jason Sudeikis' character briefly brings up the song in one scene, it's never actually played at any point. The movie is primarily about the color film developed by Kodak for cameras and was widely used by photographers for years before it was officially discontinued. Kodachrome did inspire the Paul Simon song, but that's one of the few connections between that and this movie. That aside, I found myself mostly underwhelmed with this film and its characters. This is not the fault of the actors, who are doing the best they can with the material they're given. Jason Sudeikis is one of those actors who I've liked in everything I've seen him in. He's played a decent assortment of nice characters as well as more grumpy and cynical ones, and he does well in both of these types of roles. Although the character he will probably be most remembered for is the optimistic sports coach, Ted Lasso. In Kodachrome, he plays one of those cynical roles, as he understandably does not look back fondly on the way he was treated by his now dying father, and he also attempts to save his job at a record label. Sudeikis does a good job of showing his character's annoyance at his father while also showing the eventual emotions that begin to set in. They're joined by Elizabeth Olsen as their nurse, and she also gives a decent performance, despite how underwritten her character is. Ed Harris is solid as the father of a famous photographer named Benjamin, but I find myself feeling a lot of the same sentiment as his son towards him. Through almost the entire film, he says some truly horrible and mean things, and I wondered why we're supposed to feel sympathy towards him. We do get the eventual scenes where I feel sorry for what he's done in the past, but having to spend the entire time with him in the car and his cruel comments, I don't think that forgiveness is earned. And we only spend about an hour and a half with him. Sudeikis has had to hear these remarks for several years. It's very tricky to write a cantankerous and cruel character we're meant to eventually feel sorry for, and I don't think this film is able to accomplish the latter. I found myself at a distance from these characters, which made it hard to connect to them or the story being told. With that said, the element of them trying to get the last Kodachrome photos processed is intriguing. The film is based on a New York Times article published in 2010 about the last photo lab to process that type of film, and the filmmakers do clearly show a nostalgic fondness for it and a sadness that it's now gone. I personally wish there was a bigger focus on that, as it may have even strengthened the characters a bit. There's a scene in the movie where Benjamin laments how photographs are all digital now, and that film is way better. I thought to myself, but wasn't this movie filmed with digital cameras? However, the end credits reveal that this did in fact use 35mm Kodak cameras, so I have to give credit to the filmmakers for standing by one of the movie's messages. It's just a shame that most film involves Benjamin being such a terrible person, and less on his love of photography. So much of the sentiment with the characters just rang hollow for me, because they're not written in the most compelling manner. I know I keep going on about how uninteresting the characters are, but I find in general that to be a sticking point in films I end up underwhelmed by. If I'm not invested in the characters at the center of the story, I find I have a difficult time becoming engrossed in the story they're a part of. Whether it's an action film, historical period piece, or in the case of Kodachrome, a drama. When your characters are properly fleshed out and given intriguing personalities and motivations, that often strengthens the story being told. I was sort of interested in Sudeikis in the beginning, with him working at this record label and trying to make deals, and even his general cynical attitude towards his father is well portrayed by Sudeikis. I completely bought his contempt and long years of being distant from his father. However, that intrigue went away as they departed on this road trip, and we also get this attempt at a romance between him and Elizabeth Olsen. I know I'm knocking this movie a lot, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad film. I just felt the emotions did not feel earned, and aside from its slight examination on the end of the photographic legacy of Kodachrome film, the story did not pull me in. The performances were good though. Anyway, if you've seen Kodachrome, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thank you for the request, Joshua.